Hi and welcome to the Homeopathy Health Show. I'm Atiq Ahmed Bhatti, a fourth generation homeopath with over 25 years of professional experience and practice in this field of healing. The Homeopathy Health Show is the online voice of homeopathy around the world, promoting and raising awareness of this truly unique system of healing, which is suitable for all ages, young and old. Every week I invite guests from the world of homeopathy to come and share their experiences, their work, offer insights, and essentially talk all things homeopathy. Why not visit www.liketreatslike.co.uk and click on the radio and podcast button to listen to the latest episodes. So let's begin today's show here on UK Health Radio, the world's #1 talk health radio. Hi everybody and welcome to the 50th episode of the Homeopathy Health Show. Yes, we've reached 50 episodes, the big 50 as they say, which actually reminds me of my 50th, and trust me when I say things can only get better. Now a year has gone by so quickly, and it has been quite an extraordinary year. A year of great progress for the show itself and also for homeopathy. As far as the show is concerned, I've had such a great honour to converse with so many homeopaths from around the world, including principals, teachers, authors, lecturers, students, researchers, advocates, and also ambassadors of homeopathy. And on top of that, I've had the good fortune to be able to talk to those homeopaths who are out in medical camps, who are serving humanity by providing homeopathy free of charge. So it really is such a vast array, and it's brought everybody together on this platform of the Homeopathy Health Show, and that in itself is such a delight indeed. Now this 50th episode has been full of special guest messages which I've received from around the world from homeopaths, and you can find all of these in video format on my official Instagram, and you can find me at like_treatslike. So that's at like_treatslike. There's also a special message which I've received from the CEO of UK Health Radio, and I'm delighted to share that with you also, and it's up on my socials. Now some good news for you is that the show itself has become one of the fastest growing shows on the UK Health Radio network, and again that's really humbling, because I never would have imagined a year ago where we are today, and it's just been such an incredible journey, and who knows what the next year ahead has in store. Now, I use the word store, so what's in store for today for the 50th episode? Well, it's really about going back to the start, about learning homeopathy, and so I have the good fortune to speak to 3 actually graduates from the School of Homeopathy, which is based in the UK, about their experiences and their insights. But before I do that, I actually have another surprise for you, and that is I'm joined by my dear friend Mani Norland. Mani has been on the show previously, as you know, and is the principal of the School of Homeopathy itself. Mani Norland, welcome to the 50th episode of the Homeopathy Health Show.
Woohoo! Congratulations!
It's brilliant, isn't it? I keep thinking of my birthday, I think I'm 50 years old, but I'm past that now, so...
Yes, well, 50 is a big number, isn't it? Half a century.
Absolutely.
And, I would like to pass on my congratulations to getting to the 50th episode. It's a great milestone, and it's a really good achievement, and it's great to have you out there doing all of these podcasts of different aspects of homeopathy, different people in homeopathy, and just really shining a light for homeopathy. So yeah, congratulations on the achievement, and more strength to you, and keep going.
Oh, thank you so much. Very, very kind words indeed. As I was saying to the listeners just before you joined, it's been an extraordinary year. There's so much going on in the world of homeopathy, and I've had so many guests on the show, and everyone has their unique insight and experiences, and it's just so humbling to be able to be in a position to share all of that and really promote homeopathy across the world. And it's having an impact, I have to say, and it's And that's just brilliant. It's making homeopathy hip, it's making homeopathy current, and it's taking homeopathy to the new generation of our future homeopaths.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think homeopathy continues to grow and go from strength to strength, and certainly at the school, we see enrollment numbers are up. We've had the biggest intake into year one this year, probably the biggest we've had for at least 10 years. We've just opened School of Homeopathy Turkey with our lovely partners out there, and they've got a massive enrollment for year one. I mean, homeopathy in Turkey is booming. So it's exciting, and we continue to see homeopathy doing well in America and Australia and Canada, as well as the UK and across Europe. So it's exciting. It is an exciting time to be working in natural medicine, and especially in homeopathy.
Absolutely. And I know that the school has been involved, like you've mentioned, in so many areas. And congratulations, by the way, on such a huge intake. And I'm sure it's only going to exponentially increase year on year now.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so, for the health of the planet and the health of people. We need more people thinking holistically, thinking in a connected way, caring about nature, caring about each other, caring about the planet. Get the love going around, get the healing going around, getting people looking out for each other. That's what we need.
I said to you last time, you'll remember when we were having this conversation when you were on the podcast recently, about now is the time for homeopathy, and your enrollment figures prove that, from one aspect. And everyone I've been speaking to, homeopaths, be they authors or lecturers or any modality within this huge umbrella of homeopathy, they're all saying the same thing, that the focus of people is very much towards alternative or complementary systems, and very much homeopathy seems to be right at the top there. People are genuinely interested now and asking questions and wanting to attend workshops and seminars and wanting to know more and buying books, be they second-hand books on homeopathy, and that's just brilliant. I loved hearing all that. I think it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I concur. It's good.
So what has the school been up to? What's planned for this year? I do know that you do have a seminar coming up with Dr. Gaurang and Luke Norland, who's also been on the show. Both of them actually have been on the show. And that's something quite special, isn't it, for December?
Yeah, it's great. It's coming up in December. That's absolutely right. It's on a Monday and Tuesday, and it's possible to join in person or online. It's being held in Stroud, and we're very pleased to have Gaurang actually in person. It's kind of the first time he's been to the UK and to Europe. So we're delighted to be hosting him for his first event in the UK. He's fast becoming a very popular teacher in India and in the West. And then it's always lovely to host my brother Luke, who's also, a rising star. And it's great to host this event with two rising stars, one from the East and one from the West, and bringing that together and showcasing them and hosting that at the School of Homeopathy. So no, we're delighted to put that event on, and all the information is on the School of Homeopathy website. In the events section, you'll find a page on that. And the other thing that we've got happening is next year in May, every May, we do the Marvelous May event, where we open the school up to an international guest speaker. And we have our students plus graduates and homeopaths coming together for this event. And this May, in May 2024, we have Peter Tumanello coming all the way from Australia to talk about gemstones and special stones and the remedies in homeopathy, but also the sort of theory and philosophy about the materia medica and the characteristics of those remedy types. It's going to be really interesting.
That sounds fascinating, and that's going to be such a big hitter, I think, including the one in December. I think that's going to be so well attended, and like you've said, if you are interested in attending or you want to know more, do go to the School of Homeopathy website, which is, again, Mani, please do remind us.
Schoolofhomeopathy.com.
And what else is planned? What else is planned for, I suppose, do you wind down sort of around Christmas time? We're in October, so there's a few months now, aren't there?
Yes, we do shut the school office for a couple of weeks over Christmas. So it goes quieter and takes some time to reflect and be with friends and family, which is always nice. And
yes,
hopefully enjoy a bit of snow here in the UK. If we get a bit of a spattering, get the sledge out.
We got a teaspoon of snow where I live. You know, literally, it was a teaspoon. We got so happy about it as well.
Did you put it in the freezer to save?
Yeah, then put it in a glass of Coke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But my kids always say, my family always say, "Oh, Dad, why don't we get snow?" I said, in the 80s, because I've never moved from my hometown. I said in the 80s we used to get snow up to half the door.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happened. It just stopped.
Yeah. I remember being up to my armpits in snow. It was very exciting.
Yeah, the good old days.
Never say never. Who knows?
You never know.
Yeah.
It's so great to have you back on the show, and I'm now going to move to the 3 graduates actually from the School of Homeopathy, and they are Victoria Waring, Nicole Schubert, and Joe Magowan, and they're really going to share their insights and experiences. So thank you, Mani, very, very much. Grateful to you, and I really look forward to you coming back on the show very, very soon.
Yeah, lovely. It's always a pleasure. Nice to see you, and I'm delighted with the idea of speaking to some of our graduates, and these 3 are going to be fantastic, and they're going to give a really good insight on what it's like to study homeopathy and to graduate and go out there and start practice. So I'm sure you're going to have a fun show and some good discussions. And yeah, say hi from me, and yes. pass on my best.
I'm thrilled that on the 50th we're able to get 3 graduates from the School of Homeopathy, and I think it's just wonderful. It's the best place to be at the start of that journey, and to share that with everybody.
Yeah, I think it's great. It will give people a really good insight on what it's like to study homeopathy, the development, the self-awareness, the philosophy, the learning the remedies, analysing the case receiving, and just helping people. I'm sure that's going to be a good show. So thank you for putting it together, and congratulations again on the 50th episode.
Season's greetings to you, and no doubt we will talk to one another very soon after.
Thank you, Atik. Take care.
Now on to my guests for today's 50th episode of the Homeopathy Health Show. And I'm absolutely thrilled, I'm delighted, and I'm extremely excited to welcome Joe Magowan, Nicole Schubert-Nicolas, and Victoria Waring to today's episode. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's absolute honor, absolute delight.
Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah,
I have so much to ask you. I have so many things to ask you. So, Joe, let's start with you firstly. You have been a homeopath for 5 years now, and you've got a very interesting backstory as well, actually. But I wanted to ask you how, one thing that you all have in common is that you've all studied at the School of Homeopathy, and the School of Homeopathy is run by the principal, Mani Norland. And we all know Mani was actually on the show just a few minutes ago, and he's also a very good friend and just a wonderful person, to be perfectly honest with you, an all-rounder. And I wanted to ask really what your experiences were at the school, and how you found studying homeopathy at the School of Homeopathy.
Well, it took me quite a long time to get to the point which I was ready to start at the School of Homeopathy. It had been something that I'd been thinking about through my 20s as a potential career move, but I was doing other exciting work at the time, and it wasn't the right moment. But eventually in 2009, when my eldest child was 1, so I'd become a mother, I think that was the moment at which I decided it was time to embark on the journey. So it was a bit of a shift in career. I had been working in various different charities and NGOs with sustainable development and campaigning for peace and human rights. And I decided to become a homeopath. And it sounds like it was a really big shift in career, but actually it wasn't. It was the same values that underpinned it, sustainable, ethical, treading lightly on the planet. So I joined, and it took me a long time to get to the point that I was ready to be trained, but it also took me quite a long time to actually get through the course. Having babies and moving house a couple of times got in the way, but it was a wonderful experience. Obviously, you're learning about homeopathy and materia medica and the philosophy, but there was also more to it. It felt like a journey of self-discovery, a monthly retreat, meeting people that have become very long-standing friends and colleagues. And I finally qualified in January 2019, and I've been in practice ever since. So yeah, it was a very important part of my personal life and also my professional life. And here I am.
It's very interesting. You said it's taken, several years or some extended period of time. But, that's actually not a bad thing at all, because I as you know, I speak to so many homeopaths around the world, and it's all these journeys are always so inspiring, because everything has a time and a place. And that time where I know that you were, for example, you've mentioned campaigning for human rights, peace, and working in the charity sector as well, and those are the skills that bring everything together. Homeopathy I found sometimes is like the icing on the cake, and whatever your experiences are in the past, they're never wasted. Never. I've never met anyone who said, "Oh, I did this and I don't find it's helped me in homeopathy." Whatever your background is, somehow it links into homeopathy so incredibly well.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think I still draw on lots of skills and experience I got in my first career, if you like, for this one. So yeah, absolutely.
And Victoria, moving to yourself, how was your experience? You qualified in 2022, and I actually want to ask you about your interest in the Australian bushflower essences. But before we go to that, how was studying homeopathy at the school? Because I do know that your journey originally began, you say, when you were in Prague, and that was in about 2004, I believe.
Yes, that's right. I'd been working in London before that, and we had an opportunity to move to Prague. And I thought that this would be great for me because there's a film industry as well there. So I moved to Prague, and I couldn't get a job because I didn't speak Czech. So I thought, well, I can't just move to this country and not work. So I spent 6 months learning Czech.
Was that easy? Because I'm terrible, at trying to learn. I'm terrible at trying to learn a single word, let alone a different language. So how was that experience?
Learning Czech was very, very hard, because I'm not particularly gifted at learning other languages, and because it's so completely different to English. But we were living in the country, we were immersed in the culture. I had Czech friends. I needed it every day in going to the shops and things. So I actually, after the first sort of month or two, it became much easier. And I eventually got good enough at Czech to be able to understand what people are saying generally. And when I did eventually get a job working for a film production company, I could sit in on the meetings and understand what was going on.
And obviously, you've studied at the School of Homeopathy. So, how was that experience?
It was. I loved it, actually. I started in 2004 in Prague, and I was on the distance learning course. With the plan was that I was going to fly back for the odd weekend if I could and join the attendance people, but that didn't happen so much. But I did come to 2 summer schools when Misha held them at Yondakot, which was amazing. And then life got very busy, my job got very busy, and then I had children, so finishing the training, it went on the back burner for a bit. And then when we moved back to the UK, and my youngest started school, and I decided it was time to pick up the training again. So I redid my first year distance learning, and I started the second year, and then I worked out that actually, if I carried on at that pace, I wasn't going to be qualified until, I don't know, like 2030. So I decided that actually I'd join the attendance course, and it was amazing. It was completely transformed my learning. I loved going to Hawkwood once a month. I felt like I was training with the people that I should have been training with. I finally joined the year group that I should have joined. So I actually felt like I qualified at the right time.
Again, it goes back to that thing that I was just sharing with Joe. There's always a time and a place, and I think again, I'll say it, that there's never a rush. One should never rush. Things sometimes just fall into place at the right time, and certainly that is the case with a lot of the homeopaths that I speak to. And it's a blessing, because it makes you a better homeopath. Honestly, life experiences are so important. Knowing people, understanding, sadly, we all go through them, but having trials and tribulations make you a better homeopath, because if you don't have that experience, and we all go through this, so it's just part of life, right? But those experiences give you that compassionate link to a patient, and I think that's so important nowadays.
Yes, I agree. And also I feel that qualifying later has fed into the practice that I have now, because my practice has naturally progressed into having more of a speciality in seeing people coming to me with menopause problems or children with puberty problems. And that's partly because that's the age that I am, and the age that my children are, and my friends and patients' children are. Qualifying when I did qualify has and meant that with my life experience and the age that I am, that I've been able to support the women who come to see me with menopause problems, and they're often their children who come with problems related to puberty, like acne and hormone, ups and downs and things like that. So the life experiences I had in qualifying later has actually made me a much better homeopath.
Oh, that's very, very rewarding to know, actually. Nicole, Schubert-Nicolas. Now, again, you have a very interesting journey to homeopathy, and it started in your 20s because of hay fever, which can be so upsetting, isn't it? And honestly speaking, sometimes it's not even just a simple sneeze. I'm sure you've seen patients who have hay fever, which really makes one's life a total misery. And this is, homeopathy is so amazingly good at treating hay fever and detoxification of the colon and so on and so forth. But you also have a very interesting journey overall to homeopathy. So how has that been, and how was studying at the School of Homeopathy?
Yeah, I do actually get quite a lot of patients with hay fever coming to me now, just because that is in my bio, I think. It just got to a stage where it was just impacting my life so much. It was getting worse and worse every year. So I started to look at alternatives, what I could do to kind of, resolve that. And the other alternative at the time was driving up to the London Bridge Hospital every other week to get injections for some sort of desensitization therapy. I think it's much simpler now, but it was really quite invasive then. And then a friend, a cousin actually of my husband's, came to see me and said, look, it's a really classical story. He said, well, I've been to this homeopath and she's cured me of my hay fever, so why don't you try it out? And that was the start of the journey, really. It's really changed my whole outlook on life, and obviously my professional life. And it's sort of then just weaved into me having, becoming pregnant, having children. Yeah. And then I used to work in finance. I did that for 5 years, and that was really exciting and I loved it. And then I got really bored with it. And then we had children. And so in my head, I kind of started thinking about, well, shouldn't I be studying retraining in something like this rather than just looking for a job in finance that I could combine with family life, which seemed tricky. And then my husband one day, who's also in finance, one day he just said, well, wouldn't it be much better to have a homeopath in the family rather than a second banker? And that was a really important point, because you have to because it's got quite a big financial impact on family to retrain in anything, really. I think it's really important to have both people on board. It takes two for that to work. So that was brilliant. And so then I started on the correspondence course. That didn't really work out very well. I sort of did 2 units in 8 years. And then one day, Mani Norland, she emailed me and she said, hey, why don't you sign up to the attendance course this autumn? And I just said yes. And that's how I ended up on the attendance course. And it was the best choice, really. And it was good timing. My kids were a bit older. It just became a second family, really. I mean, I've moved around quite a bit. And I think I've always made family wherever I was. And Hawkwood was no different, really. It's such a special place. Yeah. And my year group, they're still some of my closest friends. We meet twice a week on Zoom. Not twice a week, sorry. We meet twice a month on Zoom. We discuss our lives, our cases. There's always a positive thing in everything, I think. I'm an optimist. And really, the lockdown really helped us with that, because we were in the middle of our last year in the School of Homeopathy, and we suddenly all had to move online. And, the teachers say, oh, it's impossible to teach homeopathy online. It's impossible to treat patients online. It's impossible to have so many people in one meeting. And then, Mani just did it, and we all did it. And we just got into the habit of keeping in touch with each other, which makes that we've got such a fantastic peer group now.
So how do you find online consultations against physical ones?
I think I might have a preference for seeing people in person, but on the other hand, it allows me to see more patients. And I have a patient in Hong Kong. I speak 3 languages, and I'm able to see patients in France and Germany, here in the UK, and I couldn't do that if it wasn't for Zoom, or any other platform. So, in that way, I'm really grateful.
I definitely prefer seeing people in person, but where I found it helpful is when some of my long-standing clients have, for whatever reason, moved away and they want to continue. So I've built up that relationship with them in person, and I know them and I've been in the same physical space as them. But, I've got one client who's moved to Somerset. I can still see her. So that's great. And I've got another client who's moved to Berlin, and I can still see her. So that's where it's coming for me. But I personally prefer to start with people in real life. But that's a personal preference.
And what about yourself, Victoria?
Well, when I started seeing patients, it was in lockdown. So I started seeing people on Zoom, and I had no other experience apart from, friends and family. And so for me, it was the norm. And then once lockdown ended and I started seeing patients, in face-to-face patients, I realized that actually there is definitely you get more of a rapport when you see people face to face. But because I'd started on Zoom, I don't really have a problem with it. And also I find that people who come to see me for an initial consultation will often then switch to Zoom after because of work commitments or whatever. It means that they can see me during the working day. And also people with children, because I try not to see people in the evenings or at weekends because of my own family. So it's quite helpful for that. If I can still have a Zoom appointment in the evening or the weekend because then people aren't coming to my house. So it keeps the separation between my family and the patients much clearer. So it's really helpful, I think.
Wonderful. Now, Joe, I have a question for you, and that is that you are a chair for homeopathy in the Sussex community. This is an organization that provides low-cost homeopathy to vulnerable members of the local community. So, that's very wonderful indeed. And it's, as we all know, homeopathy is very much a service to humanity. And this is like literally making a big difference. So do tell us a bit more about that and how you got involved.
It's a bit of a funny story how it started, because I was, I think, in the final year of my training, so I hadn't actually qualified as a professional homeopath, and I saw an advert for a role for homeopathy in the Sussex community, and they were looking for a homeopath to work with it was a new project working with people, I think asylum seekers and refugees in the Sussex area. And it really caught my interest because of my original career working with vulnerable communities, and also making sure that homeopathy was available to everybody, not just those who were privileged to be able to afford it. So I decided to apply for the role, but I wasn't actually a qualified homeopath, but I chucked my hat into the ring anyway, and very clearly said, look, I'm not quite qualified. I'm nearly there, but I'm really passionate. Unsurprisingly, I didn't get the role, but they contacted me and said, would I like to stay involved anyway and become a trustee? So that's how I started. So an unsuccessful job application was how I got involved. So that was 2018. So it's been about 5 years, and I'm now chair. We're a very little organisation. The board is a group of volunteers. There are 3 paid homeopaths who work for the organisation, and it's largely, at the moment, it's largely working with people who are experiencing domestic violence and survivors of sexual violence and sexual assault. It's a wonderful little project. It works on a shoestring, as many of these little community organisations are. And yeah, it's really good, and I'm really proud to be part of it.
Oh, that's wonderful. So how does homeopathy in the Sussex community actually see patients? Is there a central location, or do they get through other avenues?
So they work through partner organisations that already exist and are already seeing the community that they're working with. So, for example, RISE, which is an organisation, very well-known organisation in Brighton that works with largely women who are experiencing domestic violence. So our offer is within RISE. So it's an additional offer. So RISE might signpost people to legal support, counselling, psychotherapy. One of the things that they now have through HISC is homeopathy, so access to homeopathy. So we're working through various different partner organisations that already exist, already have a really strong reputation, and we're just adding to that. So it's really professional. Obviously, through lockdown, like many structures in society, we had to rethink. Things went online. Now they're starting to get back, or they already are back face to face. But that's how we work. Yeah, it's really good.
Wonderful, to know. it's just such a nice place to be in, isn't it? To be able to give back and to be able to help. And just like yourself, you know, I have since I was, I think, early as I can remember, 6 or 7 years old, I've been involved in voluntary work, charity work throughout my life, and now my family is involved, and we do it together. And it's like at least 3 evenings a week, or certainly once a weekend. You know, full day. I'm talking, not just a couple of hours. But it's just so nice, isn't it? It's really good to be able to give back and to help the community. And homeopathy is so wonderful when it comes into the mix here. You know, there's so many things you can do. You can do soup kitchens, and winter coming up, raise funds for care homes. You can give out gloves and socks, which you know, coming up to Christmas time, I'm certainly going to be involved in that. You know, blankets and thermals and hot meals, and homeopathy is also one thing that you can actually help people with.
I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think what is great about the work that homeopathy in the Sussex community does is that it makes this a viable option for people. I think that the clients will contribute a very small amount if they can, a few pounds, nothing more, but it makes homeopathy accessible for people who wouldn't normally have that on their cards. And we've had focus groups, we've spoken to the people who've benefited from the service, who have said literally that has saved my life. So we know it's adding a great value to people.
That's really, really nice to know. Victoria, now you have a particular interest in helping those people going through times of change, specifically puberty and menopause. So what was how did you specifically go into those two areas as such? We all go through different times of change, and including when we talk about menopause specifically, it's the emotional weight of the hormonal changes that can sometimes really bring somebody very down, you know, make them very down and sad, or create other issues. So what made you go into that specifically? What's your sort of hook there?
Well, I have a general practice, so I see, you know, anyone and everyone. But over the years that I've been practicing, because I started under supervision before I qualified, it seems to be that the majority of people who come to see me are women going through the menopause, and subsequently, through helping them, they often will bring me their children who are going through puberty, who are going through quite a lot of problems as well with hormone fluctuations, acne, anger. So the women who come to see me, they often find that their menopause is much more straightforward, much easier to cope with, because HRT is very popular, but not everyone can take it, and not everyone wants to take it. So I offer an alternative to that. But if someone's on HRT, I can still support them. And then if they bring their children, then their children have a much more balanced puberty, which generally makes their whole household a lot happier, because everyone is happier. So it's not that I set out to be to have that as a sort of specialization, but it just seems to be that that's where my practice is going, and I'm very happy to support everyone who's going through that.
And you also use, or have started to use, Australian bush flower essences. And I must say, as I mentioned to you just before the recording, Ian White, 5th generation herbalist and founder of the Australian bush flower essences, has been on the Homeopathy Health Show. And I tell you, what amazing essences they are. I use them as well in practice alongside the batch flower remedies. They really are amazing. And the love and the passion and the care and the commitment and the dedication that Ian actually has for those essences in creating them. You know, if you're able to listen to that podcast, if you haven't already, he's relayed certain stories. And one of them was that he spent 2 hours driving in the Australian outback to get to a certain place. And then it was, I don't know how many hours of walking to get to find just one flower. And that's a journey that he had to then obviously repeat because I think there was a problem with the weather and he wasn't able to complete that. That's dedication. I mean, who does that? I don't know any other people except for Ian who actually spends that much time, and that's commitment, isn't it? No wonder the remedies work so well.
Yeah, they're fabulous remedies. I use I use Australian bush essences. I was introduced to flower essences through the Batch flower essences and through Nature's Wish flower essences. And from then I've moved on to incorporating Australian bush essences as well. But I find them really helpful to support the emotional ups and downs that people go through. Because often you give somebody a homeopathic remedy and it might take a while it might take a couple of weeks to work, and it might need some time to actually work itself. So it might need a month or so to actually do all the good work that it's going to do. But on a day-to-day basis, the flower essences are really beneficial for keeping everyone balanced and well whilst that process is unfolding. So yes, I find them really helpful, and so do my patients. They love them.
Now, Nicole, interesting that you have an interest in children's health, because preceding that, you did become very interested in the human microbiome and nutrition. And certainly now, with all the chemicals and pesticides and other pollutants, air pollutants and toxins, we always find that, or I certainly have come across, I'm sure this is the same for yourselves, that a lot of patients come with a lot of toxic baggage, which is no fault of their own. I mean, we have to eat, and sometimes the food may not, even though it is fresh, but, it's laced, should I say, for want of a better word, with chemicals to keep it fresh. So how did that link into children's health? Because I know a lot of children now are suffering from digestive disturbances. And, that's a real worry as well, isn't it? Because allergies as a result have really become so heightened.
Yes, yeah. I do see quite a lot of children with gut issues actually. And I don't think that's only because I attract that sort of patient because I'm so interested in the gut microbiome, but I think it's just a general problem that we have now with most children. I love the bowel nosodes, so they kind of like, for me, they lead on to my interest in nutrition and fermented drinks and all that. So I don't give nutritional advice as such to parents myself, other than very basic ones. But I do find that with the right remedy, people get on the right track and they start being interested in the right foods. I mean, I see it with my own children. I talk to them about food cravings quite a bit. Two of them are teenagers now, so they, very often they make their own food. And we talk about what it means if you have this and this craving. And remedies do change that to a certain extent, not just bowel nosodes. So it's still very much in, at the center of what I'm concerned with. But I just, I use the remedies rather than food these days.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. This is the 50th episode, so it means it's a big deal for me personally, not because it's actually the 50th episode, but the fact that I've had the opportunity to speak to so many different homeopaths around the world and give a flavor of, share their insights and experiences. And it's always nice. And I think I had this talk with Mani Norland, and I thought, for the 50th, the best thing to do is to get graduates of homeopathy on to talk about some of their experiences. It's been a real thrill and joy, actually. So with that, Joe Magowan, Nicole Schubert-Nicolas, and Victoria Waring, thank you so very much for coming on this episode. But I would say that I would ask you back so that we can actually have a longer conversation, because there are so many other questions to ask, including a question about Captain Marvel, which I didn't get around to, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of the Homeopathy Health Show. Please do support the show by clicking follow on my socials. Remember, the more exposure the podcast receives, the better for homeopathy around the world. You can find me on Instagram by searching for @like_treatslike, and on both Facebook and TikTok by searching for @like_treatslike. So let's promote the voice of homeopathy on radio and podcast around the world together. Don't forget to visit me online at www.liketreatslike.co.uk and click on the radio and podcast tab. Here you'll be able to see all the guests that have joined me on the show so far, and of course you can stream on demand the latest episode to your mobile, tablet or PC. Until next time, stay safe and take care.